How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this one I'm going to be talking about an oil pressure sensor and the different tests you can do to diagnose if your one is okay or faulty. In my hand I have a faulty sensor that I diagnosed a while back, and I'm going to be showing you some tests and some very simple ones at that you can do to find out if you have a faulty sensor in your vehicle. So without further ado, let's get into it. This oil pressure sensor that I have in my hand is one that came out of a second-hand engine that was fitted in the workshop. After that engine was fitted, vehicle was started, the oil pressure warning light was on. So knock the engine off and we do our checks to confirm the fault. Now, one check with any oil pressure warning light that it is very good to do and sometimes imperative to do is using an oil pressure gauge to check the condition of the engine. You can also check this sensor in place. And these tests apply to whether it's a 1-pin or a 2-pin setup. They are both the same test that you will be doing. In this case, there was a very telltale sign with this one because there was a heavy amount of oil present in the actual body of it. When I disconnected the electrical connector towards the harness, them plugs down here, the pin was all seeped in oil. That's common when these units fail, is for oil to be present. Also around the body here is another area that can actually leak through. But what I'm going to do is show you some very simple tests. One is using the multimeter over there, just checking the ohms, the resistance that's in the body of the unit. And then the other one is using everyday hand tools and doing some very simple tests that confirm whether you have a faulty unit or not. So let me set up these tests and we'll run through them and you will be able to confirm if you have a faulty unit yourself. The very first simple check I'm going to do is with the multimeter. I have it set up here on the continuity side, which will give you an audible beep when you are testing it. Now, these tests are the same for whether it's 1-pin or 2-pin. The only difference is if it's a 1-pin, you will have one lead onto that pin and the other lead onto the body. If it's a 2-pin, you will just have the red lead on there and then the black lead on the other one. So very simple in either case. I'm just going to apply one lead and hold it with my finger onto the body, and then I'm going to be using this lead and we should get an audible sound, which we do. So we know there is continuity through there. The other test that you do is when you flick it over to the ohms, you check the resistance of the actual unit. Hold it down and then see where it settles at. This one here is 0.3 is the test that we got. Now, you may be able to find manufacturer's specs on the exact resistance on your vehicle if you have repairer's manuals. In a lot of cases, when I go to check these, I don't actually find that information on the software that we have. Regardless, we can find out either way if it's faulty with the tests we are doing today. Now, this is a normally closed unit in the high majority of the sensors you'll be testing. That is the case. Do bear in mind there is some ones that can be normally open, which will mean the tests are the opposite. You may be getting no reading whatsoever when you are doing that. You mightn't get that continuity sound, and it will take a case of the pressure to be applied before you will get that. In this case, the unit is already closed in here, and when we apply a pressure, it actually opens. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reset up everything here to make this test as simple visually as I possibly can. So I'm probably going to set this up on the vise and use the body to actually earth it, and then put a lead onto the end of that and do all these tests so you can see. Okay, so the next part of this test, you see in front of you here some of the different methods you can use to actually do this test. If you have a compressor that you have access to, you can use these air guns to actually blow air into the top side of the sensor and then get a reading from there. You can also use, this is a coolant pressure tester, and it's very easy to use a hand pump and make an adapter to actually do the test. This is a bike pump which also can be used, and any of these type of items with a little bit of adjustment in the adapters that you will have will make it accessible for anybody to do these tests. All you're going to need then is a clear container with some water in it so you can visually see what's going on. So let me set this all up, and then you will see what I'm going to be using for it is this pressure tester here, which is a coolant pressure tester. It's going to pump the air through, and I'm going to be using this adapter here on to the end of the sensor. I also will have the multimeter hooked up with leads, so you're going to be hearing the audible sounds coming in and out as that unit is going on and off. So remember, it was normally closed, and when we apply the pressure, it's going to open up, and that's going to change that multimeter reading. So let's get this set up now. So the very first test I'm going to show is one. I have just connected up an electrical lead here onto the pin. I'm using the vise as the body just to make it easier to demonstrate, and on the lower side here I have connected up a fitting on to the unit itself. So I just have this little simple pipe, a spare piece that was cut off, and then I fitted it onto the end of the adapter, which then runs to my pressure gauge. So when I apply the pressure here, it's going to be feeding in like it's oil pressure, so that instead of being closed should then become open, which should show us a change on this after I connect my lead here. So I'm going to connect my lead here. You should get an audible sound. Then I'm going to apply the pressure through this pump, and we should see this item change here. The other thing I'm going to do is, in a second, I'm going to pour a bit of water down the top side of this, and you may see some bubbles coming through as I'm doing this test. First of all, I'm just going to apply a little bit of water in here. So I now have poured water in there. It's full up to the top. I overfilled it a bit, but you will get to see in a second. I'm going to connect my lead. You can hear the sound, and then we pump. So you can see the air bubble come through, and then you can hear the sound stop. So that gives a clear indication that we have a failure in the unit. As the pressure is being applied, it's being lost through the center, and we are getting air bubbles coming through. The next thing I'm going to do is show you this test without the leads at all set up, and just show you it in the water in a little container, and how the bubbles resonate through when pressure is applied. So the next test I'm going to do is I am going to use the compressed air and pop it in down here while I submerge the sensor. Now this can still be done with the hand pump, and it soaked in position as well, but for ease of use and also demonstrating other methods, I'm going to pop that down in here so you can see what's going on. So let me just back that up slightly. And that is it. That's how we can simply test our oil pressure sensor using everyday tools such as the ones you have seen here. We have the option for compressed air. We have the coolant pressure tester that I used. You always want to make sure that you have a good seat and a good seal on it so it can build up enough pressure when applied. When you're using the compressed air, make sure that you opt to use your regulated air and not apply too much. When in doubt, refer to manufacturer specifications for your particular unit. Really hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it useful and informative. If you did, please like, share, comment and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.